I really appreciate you coming and taking the time out of your day to join me for this chat. And I just want to dive right into it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell me a little bit about Trove, and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so Trov is headquartered in a little place called Danville in California, which is about 30 minutes outside San Francisco, and I am coming from Oakland, California, which is sort of halfway in between San Francisco and Danville today at home. What we do, we call ourselves an insurtech, so we're a combination of technology company and insurance company, if you like. And
Yeah.
my role is running part of the business called Trov Mobility. And what we specifically do, and I think this is where it overlaps with Manifest quite well, is we work with new forms of mobility, and mobility being, moving people and things around the world. And we help them specifically with risk management. And so if you think about, you're starting a new business or a new service, whatever it may be, or you're evolving a service or a business, you can't do anything without this thing called insurance. And insurance is super complex thing, but it's kind of very simple as well. On the other hand, it's a facilitator, right? So what you do is you trade unknown outcomes for a fixed amount of money. So if you're running a business and there's lots of bad things that could happen, you say, actually, I'll give you $100 so I don't have to worry about that. Which in a sense is very simplistic. What's changed maybe in the last 10 years globally and across lots of different use cases, there's a bunch of data available. And data describes the risks and what's going on. And if you can understand that risk just that little bit better because you have the data, it means you can price it at $98 instead of $100. And if I'm running a business, I care about that, right? If I'm running long haul trucks or AV vehicles to do the last mile, or taking personal vehicles to do last mile delivery, if I can squeeze a couple more dollars out of my cost side of things, that's money that goes to other places and other people. So Trov sits in that space of taking the data and technology and, if you like, doing a better job of delivering the insurance solution to the folks who need it.
Right. Yeah. And I think like you bring up a good point there, or a lot of good points there, of like risk management. I mean, given everything that happened with COVID, and I mean, like it's opened up a lot of eyes to, I mean, even areas where you needed more insurance that you didn't have it. But it's interesting to me, like the data revolution that we've experienced, it's touched every industry, but to your point, I bet it's touched insurance in a much deeper way. Like that's had to have been like just completely revolutionary for your industry, right?
Yeah, and it's still absorbing it and digesting it. So if you think, think even from your own personal life, if you have car insurance, it's an annual policy. And at the end of the year, you might get a phone call from your insurance company and say, oh, listen, John, price is going up. We see you had a little accident there over the year. So it turns out we didn't quite get your risk right, and you're a little bit riskier than we thought, so your price goes up. That's an annual cycle. And so insurance typically has been on this annual cycle for, over 100, probably multiple centuries at this point. And so to go from that to actually imagine getting data in real time, actual real time, to say, what's John doing right now and what does his risk profile look like? Huge step change for the industry as a whole. And that's kind of the opportunity for companies like Trov, where we're a technology company foremost, and we can begin to take that data and translate it into a way that's then digestible by an actuary somewhere in the world who's trying to work out what does this data actually mean. And that's exactly where we sit. So it's fun. We get to do a bunch of different things, like Waymo and their self-driving cars. They're a customer of ours, and you can imagine huge amounts of data there, right? So
you've had a long-term partnership with Waymo too, right? I think that didn't you guys announce that partnership like in 2017?
Yeah, we've been with them multiple years now, and it's super exciting industry. And
tell me more about what you guys are doing, just for our listeners that aren't aware of the Trov Waymo partnership. You care to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So what Waymo does, as for those who aren't maybe familiar with the name, Waymo is part of Google. Google started these self-driving cars quite a few years ago. They had great foresight to realize this sort of old school version of insurance, doing an annual policy, wasn't really going to work. And so they knew they had all this data and they could have a different approach. And they, in fact, approached us and said, hey, Can we work together to, to put forth a better solution, if you like, for insurance? And one of the things that we do with them is actually protecting the individual passengers that are in the vehicle. And
Okay.
so we can understand, I'll sort of generalize because I can't talk in too many specifics about Waymo because it's obviously proprietary, but to illustrate sort of the point, and we do this for multiple customers. Imagine a world where the car is sitting there and there isn't a passenger in the car. Well, the risk kind of low because
Right.
the car can get damaged. Now, when a passenger jumps in the car, the risk is higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
The potential for bad things becomes higher. When the car starts to drive, it's even higher again. And so Trov is measuring all of that risk in real time. And the result, imagine a dial, somebody turning a dial up
Yeah.
or down. That's essentially what's happening across every individual car in the fleet of vehicles or scooters or whatever the thing is that we're protecting. So it's dialing that coverage up and down in real time. And what it does, the benefit is the cost goes up and down, right? As the risk goes up, the cost goes up. But if the risk is down, the cost goes down, which is great then for if you're running, long haul trucks, for example, and you can do that and you understand the risk profile, you're taking cost out of that business. If it's e-scooters, another scenario, each of these has different risk profiles. We're able to sort of understand those risk profiles in real time. In the way, bring it back to Waymo. In the Waymo example, it's really centered on people. Are there people in the cars or not? Because if they're not, the risk goes down. And so we track all of that in real time with the net benefit of Waymo's cost is lower and then the cost to the consumer is lower to jump in one of these things.
Now, so with that real-time data tracking that you're using to put into these decisions, like, is that partnerships that you're doing with like these with data companies? Are you developing the technology to collect this real-time data? Like, how's that? Explain to me how you're getting the real-time data, right?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of it is the data is already there. So in Waymo's case, they need the data to run the business, right? So the data might come off the vehicle itself or an app when somebody orders a Waymo car. So the data is generally always there. Even, if we go to long haul trucking, which is business that is a lot more mature, the amount of telematics coming off those vehicles is enormous. And it's coming off the vehicle just to run the business. So we simply just tap into that feed of data. We know what's important for the insurance industry, for the risk industry. And we tap into a feed of that, but it's already coming off. So there's no sort of additional cost or work. And we just then do the translation to make it useful for insurance.
Right. Well, and data visualization and like these data collection companies, like these platforms have been skyrocketing lately. Like we follow obviously like all of the investments that are going into logistics technology globally. And I can tell you that like one of our main categories that we're seeing is, like what you're saying, real-time data and visibility into things. And I guess I never connected the two dots that obviously then that would that would transfer over into then the insurance, right? And the insurance side of the house. It's a really interesting kind of synergy of how like that data is connecting.
Yeah, and it's even slightly broader than just the insurance. So our customers will spend anywhere between 10 to 50% of their, between 10% and 50% of their revenue on managing risk. Okay, so, and there's two types of risk. There's insured risk, you pay somebody else to worry about it, right? The insurance company worries about it. And then there's the stuff that you have to worry about. So to put it in simplistic example, again, back to personal car insurance, you have a deductible on your insurance.
Right.
Let's say $1,000. So anything above $1,000 that happens, the insurance company worries about it. Anything below $1,000, you worry about it. Now, if you scale that up to a business, the balance between the two is probably different. But the point being that as operating a business, you, in an extreme case, 50% of all your expenses, tires, fuel, employees, offices, maintenance, 50% of that is actually on the cost of risk. And so this is where the data comes back into the story again. In sort of old school view of the world, you got a view into what's driving that cost once a year through your insurance policy. Now you're getting a view of that data in real time. So some of it impacts the cost of insurance, but some of it impacts, like I'll give you another example. So we work with last mile delivery situations where people are using their own cars. And so what happens if, they run in to drop something into a house and they come back out and their side view mirror is being broken off? Okay, so that's probably too small a thing for the insurance to cover, but it happens enough times that the cost of that for the business, paying these people to use their cars, is actually quite high. And
Right.
so we're gathering all of this data up in real time and finding those patterns for them. So where they might be paying 50% of their expenses to cover this stuff, now they find out, oh, side view mirrors on cars is a real issue. We didn't actually realize that. What can we do to influence that? And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of things that are influencing these risks. And so, again, gather up the data, and we give them the data visualizations then to understand what the levers are that they can pull and adjust to actually take costs out of their business.
All right. Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess I don't, when people like you said, these independent contractor deliveries, right? Or delivery drivers, is like their typical insurance, like their typical, like, I don't know, just their regular, I need this liability insurance. Does that not cover it, or is that not enough? Or
Great question. Yeah, and we should say, so the space that we play in, it's generally embedded insurance, meaning for the gig worker for driving a car. When they're driving their car around on their own, they need to have car insurance. But when they're doing a delivery job, or they're driving for an Uber or a Lyft or something like that, the Uber or the Lyft or the delivery company, the Amazon, is actually paying for their insurance because they're driving commercially.
okay.
And so that's why the company cares about how many side view mirrors were broken off, how many because
Right.
they're the ones paying the insurance. And it's complex because it's, can be tens of thousands of vehicles. And so gig worker cares about it because they want to get their car fixed. But when you scale that up across, thousands of vehicles, it becomes a real issue.
Right. So, so what do you think is going to, I mean, obviously I'm going to guess based on our conversation that it's data, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
outside of data, like, what do you think is going to be like the big thing that's going to be like driving your industry for the next like 5 years, 10 years down the road? Like, what are you guys excited about or exploring that you're interested in that might be a game changer
Yeah,
without
I
giving
think
away the secret sauce?
no, we definitely won't do that. But I think that the complexity is an interesting thing, because you asked me this question a second ago about, like, sort of who's paying for the insurance and how does that work.
Right.
That is only getting more and more complex in terms of we're bringing new types of solutions and services to market. Vehicles being used for different things. 1 minute's delivery, next minute's rideshare, for example. Or 1 minute's person driving a long haul truck, and then the next minute's self-driving. So that complexity and the rate at which stuff is changing, and of course in current times with the pandemic, it's changing even quicker. So you have, on the one hand, you have an insurance industry which is slow moving. On the other hand, you have entrepreneurs out there trying to adjust their services and bring new services to market very quickly. The bit that slows them down is the insurance part.
Right.
And so that complexity is only going to get bigger and bigger and more complex
Right.
over time. So that's an opportunity for us, because we're technologists and we can handle that complexity, but that's only
Right.
going to get more sophisticated, if you like. And what drives that, of course, is the data. So that is important. And then the third piece of the puzzle is insurance cares about data, because you only need to change one or two small things and the shape of that risk changes.
Right.
And so that is that's going to be an ongoing challenge, where we have the data, which is important, but what's really critically important is the insights that you derive from that data. And those insights are kind of unique to each use case. And
Yeah.
so we've got the data coming. In a sense, we have that solved. The complexity we continue to deal with, but it's the insights where the real magic is, right? So when you
Right.
can say, oh, you're using a lot of blue cars, the blue cars are more risky. Nobody would have thought of that, right? But being
Right.
able to understand that and then turn the dial and take cost out of your business and make your business run better, that's kind of where the magic is at. And so that's kind of the next horizon, I think, for insurance and technology working together.
Right. It's just like diving deeper into that complexity. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned you mentioned that you're always launching like new platforms and new product offerings and things. That's actually what kind of dropped Trove on my radar, is that you guys are launching a rapid quote process platform,
Yep.
right? For
Yeah,
tell me
for
more
last
about
mile
that,
delivery.
please,
Yeah.
before I muck it up.
Yeah. So, yeah, let me give you a bit of context for what we've been doing. So, as I said, new mobility, anything about moving people or things around is where we play, and we help businesses either scale new services around that or launch new services. And so, what we've actually seen. So we're here. What are we? Sort of mid to late June 2020.
Right.
So first quarter of the year, lots of people sort of sharing economy types things, people sharing cars and bicycles and other things. Pandemic rolls into town, that changes things, right? And so what we saw is shelter in place, a lot of people working out of home, which is interesting. But last mile delivery became a really important thing, where you had
Right.
fleets of vehicles. We were talking earlier about Hertz and their fleet of vehicles sitting around. There's a bunch of vehicle fleets around the country and around the world sitting there, or there were sitting idle. And so people were looking to redeploy these for last mile delivery. And this gets back to kind of the facilitation role that we play.
Mm,
Um, and the complexity, right? You might have cars being used for Uber or Lyft or whatever, and now they want to use them for delivery as well. That's a bunch of new insurance challenges, and new insurance is required for all of that. And so we partnered with some underwriters in the US to fast track that quotation process. So we would get calls from car dealerships saying, "Hey, I want to make my cars available for people to pick up and deliver, medicines to people or groceries or whatever." And ordinarily we'd say, well, that, it's going to be multiple weeks. Probably you need a lot of information, and hopefully but we realized the necessity to get these cars moving very quickly. And so, as I said, we partner with underwriters, insurance companies, essentially, to be able to
right.
provide, get the data, get the information, get them quotes, and get them on the road as quickly as possible.
So, um, anytime someone tells me that they're able to truncate what was an established long process, right? So then I have to ask the question of like, what were you able to do to compress that? Or are you like taking some leaps maybe? Like, are you maybe you based on like risk assessment of like chosen an area that was taking up a lot of time where, okay, like let's not focus on that and focus on these areas that are more drivers? Or like, what were you able to do to compress that timeline, right? Because it used to take weeks for a reason.
Yeah. There's probably two things. First of all, is simply focus, right? So we have good relationships with insurance companies around the world. And so we're
Mm,
able to say to them and say, look, there's two benefits here. One is additional business. And then, there's a positive vibe, if you like. It's good PR for you guys to be doing this. So we were able to get the focus, was sort of step one. And then step two, which is somewhat unique for Trove. When you have an insurance company, they are risk averse, right? You think
right.
they'd be comfortable, but you're saying, here's a new risk insurance, and they're saying, well, I don't have any data. I can't, I don't know how this thing works. And so what we say in response to that is, we'll get you the data from day one. From the first minute this program is up and running, you'll be seeing data coming up in real time. So that combination of just getting the focus and then the ability to deliver the data to
Right.
them in real time sort of both excited them and placated them in terms of the concerns they had. And so we're able to sort of combine the two of those to put the program together to provide those quotes rapidly.
Perfect. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That would definitely shorten the process. So who, I mean, while you've got a chance, like who should reach out to you? Like who do you think you could help out the most? Who should reach out to Trove for this risk management? Do you have like a set perfect person that should call you?
Yeah, so we work directly with companies, obviously, so that insurance, as we talked about, is embedded in their service. So we work with anybody from micromobility, so scooters and e-bikes, to car share platforms. So we have a bunch of OEMs. So Peugeot, for example, is a customer of ours. They have a car share platform where you can rent their cars by the minute. So anybody like that. We do a lot of stuff in autonomous vehicles as well.
Okay.
So we mentioned Waymo. There's a couple of other folks as well, particularly around delivery. So any type of last mile delivery, whether it's autonomous or human driven, we do autonomous shuttles. So think shuttle buses, that type of
Yeah.
thing. So anybody who's sitting somewhere saying, I need to either scale my business or I need to launch this new service and it's a bit different and I've got data, then we can help them take advantage of that to get a better sort of a better deal, if you like, and a better approach to managing their risk.
All right, stellar. And you, I know you mentioned that the Rapid program was only in the U.S., but you guys are not only U.S., right? Trov's an international organization.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we have relationships over a vast majority of the world. So Europe is a big spot for us. We're in Latin America, Asia. So we have partnerships so for example, in Australia with Suncorp, so one of the largest insurance companies over there, with Sompo in Japan. So we can help people go global as well.
I think I saw something. I don't know if you want to talk about. I think I saw something on your blog about a partnership in Brazil that you guys just announced, or at least recently.
Yeah, that's a slightly different part of our business, so I won't
Mm-hmm.
speak too much to it. But yeah,
Okay.
that's
All
a
right.
company
Yeah.
called Sura. But the opportunities are similar. Like wherever you go,
Right.
it's data is now available. Complexity is going up. You need tech, and so we're able to do some pretty exciting things.
Well, that's awesome. All right. Well, hey, Ian, I really appreciate you taking the time to join in. I know that our listeners appreciate the insight into what Trov's doing. It's really exciting. Hopefully, I can have you back to talk with us again when you got something new cooking, something more to talk about, right?
Absolutely. Love to do it. Thank you, John, for having us.
I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good day.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, John. Take it easy.
Yep.
See you. Bye.